The arrival of the Transformers on Earth in 1984 was a great advent in human history. Not only did we discover we weren't alone in the universe, but over the next 20-plus years, mankind would grow in its own capabilities of space exploration, military defense, and communication, all thanks to the help and the opportunities the Autobots offered their human compatriots. To help counter the Decepticons and the possibility of other interstellar threats, Earth built its own defense force, the EDC. And while Earth's best technology was not terribly advanced when compared to Autobot science,
look at him go! Aren't they a gorgeous sight?
Impressive for primitive rocket technology.
by this time, the people of the Earth were well on their way, leaving the cradle of their world behind and moving out into the cosmos. Transformers from Cybertron, many of whom have lived for millions of years, have often wondered at the adaptive abilities of humans and how much they seem to be able to accomplish within such minuscule lifespans when compared to their own longevity. In that regard, human innovation is fairly impressive even to the Transformers, especially to the Decepticons, who always manage to find it useful enough to warrant stealing it, like, all the time. At this crossroads of human history with that of Cybertron's, it's not unusual by 2006 or so for us to see a spacecraft piloted by scientist astronauts deep into interstellar space, conducting experiments on some marvelous bit of science or engineering, much as we find Gregory Swafford and Jessica Morgan at this time.
The heat-resistant alloys are holding firm, as we expected. We did it.
Why, that's great, Gregory. So why don't you get my daughter away from there and head back home? We'll have a celebration.
Dad, don't encourage Gregory to celebrate yet. We still need to test closer to the sun.
Once again, much like the writers of the movie, this scene gives us a lot with very little. Their dialogue makes clear in the way they speak to each other that Gregory and Jessica's father, Mark, are old friends who have worked together for a long time. It also seems clear that Jessica is the most responsible member of this group, as we see in her thoroughness and desire to take this experiment and the danger around it more seriously than the others. Also telling is the scar across Gregory's face, which speaks to some kind of dangerous incident he's previously survived. And although we shouldn't ever judge a book by its cover, scars such as this were often indicative of villainy way back when, in cartoons from the 80s. Therefore, as an audience, we already suspect Gregory of some nefarious action to come. Their experiment is to see if their newly created special metal is impervious to heat and radiation. And what better way to test this than against an exploding star? However, the star they have slated to test this metal with is hiding more than just runaway nuclear fusion. Jessica notices another ship in the vicinity, headed on a course to a small, asymmetrical planetoid orbiting this star. As they scan this advanced-looking vessel, Jessica detects some life sign. Hailing the ship, it responds automatically, revealing its one and only occupant. The one and only Optimus Prime. Now, let's take a moment to consider how this is all possible. How Optimus came to be in this ship, around this planetoid, near this star, and looking in essentially pristine condition. Now, the show never specifically states in its broadcast that this scenario takes place at the same time or even the same place as the ending of Dark Awakening, where we last saw Optimus, despite a small blink-and-you'll-miss-it reuse of animation from that episode. In Dark Awakening, the ship Optimus aimed at the Quintesson trap they'd set for the Autobot fleet is supposed to be the flagship of said fleet. This being their flagship, one would think that it's at least as big, advanced, and well-equipped as the Ark, the ship which the Transformers crashed to Earth in 4 million years ago. The Ark had an advanced Teletran computer system within it, which had many capabilities, and seemed programmed with protocols to take in emergency situations. It stands to reason that this flagship Optimus pilots at the end of Dark Awakening would also have a Teletran system inside it, maybe one even more advanced than the original from the Ark. Let's say, during this final heroic charge Optimus led at the Quintessons, some of these emergency protocols kicked in. Seeing it's about to crash and explode in a spectacular fashion, this Teletran system engages an escape protocol for its one and only crew member. It performs one of the other abilities Autobot ships are known for, emergency separation. We did see the flagship ram the Quintesson trap and detonate it, destroying everything nearby. But what if? What if maybe 1/4 of that ship had actually detached and fled? Perhaps its navigation being somewhat scrambled that close to the explosion. Adrift, without a conscious crew to correct its navigational coordinates, it continues following other emergency procedures by repairing its wayward captain, much the same way Teletran 1 repaired the Autobots and Decepticons on Earth. Why would it bother with Optimus and his zombie-like carcass? If Optimus was essentially still sparkless and dead during Dark Awakening, why would this Teletran system bother with repair? Well, we also know that Jessica Morgan detected life signs on this vessel. This helps support my theory that before Optimus gave the Matrix back to RODIMUS Prime, the Matrix had succeeded in healing the spark of Optimus, even to a weak and faint degree. That, mixed with the necromancy of the Quintessons, plus Optimus Prime's natural strength, courage, and resolve to overcome their meddling, essentially succeeded in bringing Optimus Prime back. Kind of. He would, at this time, probably fall under that same category of mostly dead, or something of a deep coma or a stasis lock that a non-gray Transformer casualty could slip into. A condition that can lead to true death, if not attended to in some timely manner, subjective to a myriad of situations. And I believe that brings us back to this current situation of this vessel Optimus Prime is in, heading towards this nearby planetoid. It's probably reasonable to assume that the ship is nearly out of energy and needs to make its own emergency landing. It just happens to be near the star these human scientists are using to test the new heat-resistant metal they've developed. As the hailed ship reveals its occupant to the humans,
Life signs.
Jessica at least recognizes him as an Autobot.
It's an Autobot.
However, Gregory knows exactly who Optimus Prime is.
Optimus Prime.
Fingering his scar, we're shown a flashback to presumably several years before, sometime pre-2005 at least, with Optimus and Megatron in one of their classic clashes, knocking each other about in a lab where Gregory performed research. As he runs in to see the commotion, stray blaster bolts ignite some chemicals, causing an explosion that Gregory survived, but not completely intact. The trauma of the event clearly leaves scars, physically, but also mentally. Scars which reside inside him, even larger than the one we see on his face. Jessica and Gregory debate over the merits of saving Optimus, if it's even worth trying to save him.
Prime did this to me. This is his fault.
No, Gregory, it was that other Transformer. Optimus Prime is an Autobot, a good robot. If you don't want to help me save him, you can stay here.
This shows us Jessica's strength of character, not only in wanting to rescue Optimus, but in having the wherewithal to really understand the core difference in an Autobot compared to a Decepticon. As they move in, their time before the ship impacts the planetoid, not to mention the nearby star going nova, is very limited. We also get a handful of instances showing Gregory's prejudice against the robots compared to Jessica's compassion.
All robots are alike, Jesse. Why do you insist on risking your life? We only have 5 minutes to get back aboard the Solaris before kaboom!
So don't just float there, help me!
4 minutes remaining.
Lousy robot!
Oh, way to go! Hit them when they're down!
Succeeding in their last-minute save of Optimus, his ship crashes into the planetoid, and the star they orbit explodes. These events produce a wave of spores that were seemingly contained within this star. Having exploded, they fly forth and cling to the ship of the human scientists. They marvel not only at this interesting new alien life form they've serendipitously discovered, but the fact that their ship, coated in the special heat-resistant metal they meant to test, is indeed impervious to even the explosion of this star.
What's coating the monitor? It looks like some kind of spore.
Who cares? Gregory, the sun's going nova, and our ship's surviving! Our experiment's a success!
Jessica, in her elation of the success of their experiment, as well as the unexpected bonuses of their spore discovery, and the saving of a famous Autobot leader, sets a course at maximum speed for the Earth.
Prepare for acceleration! We're going home!
Back at their secluded mountain laboratory on Earth, it's apparent that Prime's inert condition is something that can wait, as well as notifying the Autobots of their acquisition of him. Instead, the scientists seem much more preoccupied with these new spores brought back from the expedition, spores that themselves seemed inert, but are quickly coming about.
The spores are a virus that manifests hatred. They're trying to destroy each other.
It's incredible. When we write our reports...
Reports? Dad, don't you see how crazy this is? Get rid of those spores! Shoot them back into space! If they contaminate people, they could make World War II look like a schoolyard brawl!
You can't blame these scientists for wanting to unlock the mysteries of the universe, but seriously, Jessica is like the only sensible person in this lab. Before her father can condescend to her with some irrational justification for not eradicating these spores that are unquestionably dangerous to all life as we know it, the lab is attacked.
What's happening?
Galvatron wants the heat-resistant metal that's in there! We'll take it!
It seems Galvatron has heard of these valuable new metals and has sent the Terracons to appropriate this for his cause. Thank goodness that their Autobot rivals, the Technobots, are able to intercept the Terracons after anticipating their desire to obtain this breakthrough alloy technology. Yet, as their war has often done, the hasty escalation of this battle begins to destroy what the Technobots intended to save. The Terracons form Abominus to crush the Technobots, who in turn combine into the giant Computron. Abominus, being faster on the draw than the intellectual Autobot Gestalt, blasts him to the ground and begins reaching through the roof of the lab, knocking down the walls, breaking any obstacle in his path to find Galvatron's desired prize. Jessica pushes her father out of the way of the falling debris, saving him, but is pinned by it from the waist down, buried under more rubble. The Terracons revert to their individual selves, and Sinner Twin succeeds in finding the special heat-resistant metal.
The alloy!
It's here!
His fellow Terracons grab every bit of it, and retreat under the fire of the advancing Technobots, to deliver to Galvatron their stolen bounty. Instead of pursuing their enemy, the Technobots naturally stay at the lab to assist the victims of the Decepticon assault. Scattershot finds where Jessica is injured under the rubble and orders the Technobots to radio for help. Scattershot stands there holding the beam, allowing for Jessica's rescue, but her father Mark is extremely upset and emotional, which honestly is warranted by this entire ordeal. His daughter's condition, his lab's extensive damage, and his newest and greatest invention stolen by those other robots. I think any of us would be ready to lose our minds under the circumstances. Yet, his rage is misplaced, as he beats uselessly on Scattershot's leg, directing his anger at this individual trying to help him and his family.
Strafe! Summon first aid! The female human is hurt!
Get away from her, you killers! Don't touch her! Leave my daughter alone!
All this simply for being a robot, just like those other robots. All robots must be the same, and should all be blamed for this tragedy, right? Even as the emergency vehicles arrive and Lightspeed attempts to help lift Jessica into the back of the ambulance, Mark bats Lightspeed away, not wanting any more of these robots to be near his family. It is ironic and maddening to Mark when the ambulance itself turns out to be the Protectobot First Aid, who informs Mark which hospital they're taking Jessica to.
Get away, I said! I can do this!
We'll bring your daughter to County General, sir!
Once all of the other emergency vehicles transform and leave to further attend to other matters, Mark's feelings of helplessness, of confusion, of being victimized by these robots in disguise burst forth in fear, in prejudice, and in raw, unfiltered anger.
The ambulance! It's one of them! They're taking away Jessica! I hate them, Gregory! I hate them all!
Gregory already hated them all, for much the same misguided reasoning, Autobots and Decepticons alike. We see that throughout their discoveries of the spores and their capabilities, as well as having Optimus in their possession elsewhere in the lab, Gregory has already been considering a way to use these assets to pay back those he deems responsible for the things both himself and Mark have now suffered in life.
Mark, we're not helpless. We can get even with them. We can use the spores, make the robots hate and destroy each other. Remember, we have their leader. We have the body of Optimus Prime. When we're done, the new Optimus Prime won't be the Autobots' leader. He'll be their destroyer.
During previous viewings of this special, I've often wondered before if the spores that induce hate were just beginning to grow in strength to a small degree in this lab, and have some influence on the behavior of these intellectual men. Men whom you'd think would act logically, pragmatically, and be able to assess even a tragic or traumatic event with some degree of understanding, empathy, even forgiveness or acceptance, as they pick up the pieces and do their best to move forward. It's not an easy thing to do any of that, though, is it? And it's unfortunate that, in most of human history, we're rather terrible at handling horrific events or being mistreated without leaning into the temptation of revenge, payback, or at the very least a proportional response in an attempt to balance the scales. To feel anger, hate, and hostility to a perceived enemy is already a very difficult emotion to overcome and soothe, and certainly difficult to let go of altogether. This stands for humans and Cybertronians alike, as both races tend to perpetuate their endless wars. It's terribly unfortunate, then, that these spores, which induce and accelerate those exact emotions within any living being they come into contact with, are about to be weaponized against the Transformers. Weaponized by these humans who wish to decimate the Cybertronian species out of pure personal spite. And the bait they plan to use for this is one of Cybertron's greatest icons of tolerance, selflessness, and peace.